Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, Adam, Caplan. We are here for Inside the Birds, and because we've already done the Eagles post-game show, which came out Thursday night, and then Friday morning in the podcast version, we decided to take this weekend to do to kind of answer questions that a lot of people have asked us for the last month or two, and that's to do a contract show because the Eagles have so many guys on expiring contracts or one-year contracts and it's such a good team, Adam, that it's understandably people are curious, especially in a downtime like this. Like, how are you going to keep this thing together, even though this year hasn't even been settled yet? So this is going to be a fun episode. This will be a fun time for the Eagles, as now I say this sort of sadly, is that there, no more headlines will be stolen from them from the Phillies or even the Union, both of them being unsuccessful in their quest to win a championship. So I have to tell you, it was only about 5 or 10 minutes after the Phillies lost Saturday night that I was getting, people reaching out to me, fans, well, now the Eagles have to do it. Now the Eagles have to do it.
Sure.
Which is sort of like what Quentin Michael talked about the time that the Phillies did win the World Series in 2008. He remembers a reporter. You'll have to listen to the episode 2 weeks ago to find out which reporter it was, walking up to him after our practice saying, "So when are you guys going to win it?" This is like of course, in 2008. So they hadn't, won the Super Bowl yet.
That was a good year. Yeah, that was an amazing year. In fact, that was when they lost Arizona in the championship game, right?
Yeah. And it wasn't this simultaneous greatness like you saw this year because the Eagles struggled out of the gate that year. And then you're right, Donovan got benched and they were 5-6. Then he came back and had that magical run there at the end that went all the way to the NFC Championship game in Arizona. Whereas, this year you had 8-0 Eagles and the Phillies in the World Series and everything was great at the same time. And then I don't want to, forget the Union, congratulations to them. They lost in the most heartbreaking way possible, right? Penalty kicks, which is just, that's gut wrenching, very gut wrenching. So, but it is all Eagles now. You know that the attention of the entire city is now going to be on this 8-0 team. Do you think this 8-0 team has flown under the radar a little bit?
No, but it's kind of just seeing, what's out there on social media, our message boards and feedback, and also our shows, and just talking to some fans and so forth. It's kind of like the fans knew, because I know people who are subscribers and listeners to our show regularly are super diehard smart fans. They know the Eagles had a favorable schedule. They also knew the Eagles had a really good roster. They expect them to be good. So on your question, is them being 8-0 a surprise? Probably not. They probably expect them to lose a game, but it's always hard to project that, whether it's the Minnesota game or one of the games over the first 8.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone's really surprised that they're very good, that they're one of the top 3 teams in the National Football League. I haven't talked to one fan, one season ticket holder surprised that they're this good. They kind of expected, to answer your question. It's really fair.
Yeah.
I think they expected. That's why they're super psyched about Hurts, obviously. They're still trying to crush Gannon anytime they get a chance.
Someone's going to.
But they also know Najee done a better job. But I think they're in it now. That, as you said, the Phillies are over.
Mm-hmm.
Their total focus will be. Plus, remember they had the bye a couple weeks ago.
Right.
They came off the bye and won. So no, it's they're just to move this along here. They clearly knew they were going to be good, but I don't know if, because it's so hard to quantify with the schedule. B, their games have been so dominant. It's like when they face a really good team, will they be as dominant? And that's something they'll answer later. I
think you can almost say, will they face a really good team? You're right. I mean, the rest of their schedule, it's hard to, the Packers continue to lose, lost again. They're 3-6. The Dallas Cowboys are a good team, but they've already played them. So they'll face them again. And that game may or may not mean anything. So you're talking about a while here, potentially. Now, I'm not saying they're going to not lose. I'm just saying, like, to answer it's a fair question to say, well, when do they really play another really good team? But by the way, the Vikings, you can say what you want about them. They're 7-1. And I didn't think the Eagles were going to be 8-0, even though I expected them to be good this year, because I just, how hard it is to win in this league week after week and not slip up and have a little bit of an issue. Well, the Eagles have had some issues within games, but they've been able to close everybody out. The Vikings have not lost since losing to the Eagles in week 2. So they've won what, 6 straight games themselves?
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, we got to continue. I think we have to consider that a team that's good that the Eagles beat fair with no backup quarterback with like Dallas. That's a good win right now. But you could say what you want about the Vikings and maybe they're paper tigers, but they're 7-1. You got to give them the credit.
Yeah, what's happened since Minnesota? Okay, they played awful defense. Ed Donatel, if you remember, he just did not run the defense like he normally would. For whatever reason, he just didn't have a good game.
Mm-hmm.
They've dominated since then. In fact, they're winning close games. Their front now is playing better. Zadarius Smith is playing at a Pro Bowl level.
Yep.
Since that game, it's just funny how that works out. Then it's funny. The Jaguars were 2-1. They played the Eagles. They blew that big lead, in the rain. Then they lost 5. They lost 5 in a row, then 1 on Sunday against the lowly Raiders.
Yeah,
it's just kind of funny what happens when you play the Eagles. You sort of figure out who you are. But the Vikings really rebounded, as you said, after that game. And I would say, before we move on here, I would say Week 13. Obviously, the Titans are really good. They gave the Chiefs a huge game on Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants. Listen, I know people think they're a fraud at 6-2. They're another team. I don't know how they do it with limited resources in offense, other than Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
Great coaching, offensive line. Their tackles are tremendous, especially Andrew Thomas. Not only is he playing at a Pro Bowl level, he might be an All-Pro. That's how good he is.
Wow, that is amazing considering how his first year went.
Exactly. It's coaching, confidence. He's healthy. He had ankle surgery in the offseason. He's playing great.
Yep.
Jones has not turned the ball over. They're gonna be plus minus. They're gonna be by the end of the season probably well into the plus.
Mm-hmm.
But it's Tennessee, Week 13. The first on paper. The first real tough one should be in Week 13 here against the Titans. The week after at the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing about the Bears is you could say what you want. I know the record's not very good. Fields is getting better. They're running them like crazy.
Right.
They're scoring a ton of points.
Yeah, they are. I think he's getting better, Fields, and obviously they brought in some reinforcements there with Claypool. So they're an interesting team to watch. I agree with you. Interesting team to watch. He's getting better. All right. Well, listen, the Eagles also have the benefit of a long layoff, not only because they played Thursday night, but they don't play again until Monday night at Washington. So good on them. They get a little break in the schedule there. So that means our next pregame show will be Monday night at Rivers Casino, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. Myself, Adam, Trey Thomas, maybe. We'll see. Jason Avant, and we might get Trey because I think Greg Cosell won't be able to fill in. So we'll probably have Trey or somebody else fill in for us. So it'll be a great show. Then, of course, we'll have the post-game show as well. We'll get a Q&A this week. That should be pretty interesting. And Wednesday will be our tape review, our film review podcast that will replay. We'll go through the win over the Texans and get you all the film review from that.
Yeah, I could tell you the early word I got was that this is interesting. So just one guy said to him, he goes, listen, he goes, I don't know what their this guy does not know the Eagles coaches, but he goes, you got to get Goddard the ball. This guy said 8 or 9 times. He said it was ridiculous. And I understand it was his own defense. The guy was talking about, based on tape study, you have to figure out a way. This guy's a game changer in the middle of the field. They simply could not handle it.
I agree.
I'm thinking that this guy, I was just talking to this personnel guy. He's like, look, Philly needs to get this guy 8, 9 targets a game. I said, I agree, man. This guy's a stud. Yeah, because he changes the way you defend the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
When everybody, because you got to pay such attention to him in the middle of the field, that gets you one-on-one cover. At some point, you're going to double him, or you're going to move your safeties up to stop giving that gap up.
Right.
That's what this guy was saying. So I'm looking forward to talking to another couple of people for our Wednesday morning show. But yeah, that Goddard, to me, he's on pace for 85 receptions, by the way.
I think I said going into the year, I thought he was going to be in that kind of 75 to 85 catch category, 1,000 yards. And I did say in the pregame show, I picked him as my player to watch, Game Time Watch's player to watch. And I said he was going to have 100 yards and 10 catches. Now I was 2 catches shy, but I got the 100 yards. So he was my player to watch, and he had a heck of a game. All right. Again, Patreon, become a member of our Patreon community, you go to patreon.com/insidethebirds. We're given bonus exclusive content that only Patreon subscribers can get. We've had John DiFilippo on with us. We've had defensive coordinator Paul Gunther on with us. We're about to have a head coach, a former NFL head coach, come on with us next. So make sure you're a subscriber. And of course, we've been doing chats on Discord. Adam does it every Wednesday night from 8 to 8:30. So you get to interact and have your questions asked by Adam. And we've got some prizes and giveaways that we've had going on too. So a lot of reasons to be a part of our Patreon community. Patreon.com/insidethebirds.
Yes, I was just gonna say, Flip. I talked to John last week. He said that what we'll do is he brought up a couple good points about comparing the 17 team to this team.
That
So
would be great.
where we left off with John the last time, it was more the first half of the season. We didn't really think we were going to set it up this way, but it just worked out. So what'll happen is we're going to talk more about the second half. And when you get that momentum, when you know the NFL's best, just ironically, I think if we were being honest about it, what did the Eagles clinch the Rams game, right? The week 14-ish in LA, right? When Wentz got hurt.
Yes, week 13-ish, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So look, the Eagles are as dominant as they were that year. And there's some players that still remain, not a lot, but there still are. And John's going to walk us through the second half of that season and what it's like to game plan, knowing when you're getting that momentum and you start feeling it when you're game planning and get more confidence. And now, obviously, the difference is that Wentz will wind up getting hurt and getting Nick Foles ready. I cannot wait to talk to him about that because it's such a unique experience and what it was like. Just on that historic run, which gave the Eagles their one and only Super Bowl, which the fans will never
forget. Definitely not. All right, well, let's talk about these contracts, Adam. We're going to go first. We'll start with offense and start with defense. We're not only going to go through people who are on expiring contracts, but for example, we'll talk about Jalen Hurts, of course, who will be at the end of his third season, which means he'll be eligible for a contract extension. So any draft pick after the third year.
Well, he's signed for next year. Yeah,
he is signed through next year, but he'll be eligible for the first time for a contract extension after this year.
Correct.
All right.
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
So why don't we start with Jalen Hurts?
Exactly. Yeah. So
because he's about to see a big jump in salary.
This is okay. So this is the we were going inside their decisions, and I've asked a lot of people around the league, contract negotiators, former GMs. I know guys who've been in that chair to make decisions on this one. This is interesting because you have to go by where he is now. I understand last year there were questions whether he should even come back as a starter, but that's then. This is now. You see the growth that he's made. Quite frankly, the most two improved quarterbacks in the league are Jalen Hurts, obviously, and Geno Smith.
Oh God, yeah. Yes.
He's been incredible. I mean, you couldn't make this up. Like, it's crazy. So, okay, so Geno Smith's a journeyman veteran. Let's stick with this guy, Jalen Hurts, who would enter next year's on the final year's deal. Based on where they're at, now the feeling here is that if you're the Eagles, just let the thing play out. Obviously, you're not supposed to negotiate until, by the rules, you're not supposed to enter negotiations until after their season's over. But you could do it on the DL with his agent. They could do it with his agent to call in and just kind of talk it through. Hey, what are you thinking? You just have informal talks. Now, what happens is what both sides will take is comparables. They'll go grab some contracts, comparable age, or sort of comparable production, or it's hard to. Hurts is not a one-year wonder, but this is his first big year. This is his first. I don't know if it'll be an MVP year, but he's certainly playing exceptional football. So they're going to have to figure out what the comparable contracts are. So to me, you look at the last couple ones that are done. The Mahomes one's not fair because that was a 10-year deal, which was ridiculously team-friendly. That's right. A starter contract.
Right.
That was done totally team-friendly, and that one's going to have to be redone because he's completely outplayed it already. It's how great he is. But I would look at the Dak Prescott extension. See, people argue that Prescott's a much better player, but here's the thing, though. Yes, he's done it for longer. He's also been hurt a lot. He's not really won anything.
Correct.
He's very good. I'm not taking anything away from him.
Right.
And the difference is now, remember now, Hurts does not have a fifth-year option. He was not drafted in the first round. Neither was Prescott. the argument there would be Dak's done it for longer. Can't argue against it. But you have to find contracts that are fair because Hurts is having a fantastic year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you want to talk about Pro Bowls, well, Hurts is on his way to being a Pro Bowler for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what they'll have to do is they'll have to go through not only the rest of the season because they have to by rule. I think you got to look at how he does in the playoffs. If he has a game like he had against Tampa in the playoffs, the leverage goes to the club in terms of what they could offer him. To me, I still look at Prescott's contract, $40 million a year, $42 million over the first 3 years, which is what agents look at, and the total guarantees $126 million. That to me, forget about the deals that were done, like the Jared Goff contract, which is phenomenal back in 2019 with the Rams. That was 2019. That's too long ago. You can't use that as comparable. It's $35 million, which at the time was ridiculously great for him. Great job by his agents, but that doesn't work. So to me, the most recent ones would be Prescott. Now, the Kyler Murray one, remember now, folks, he was the first pick overall in 2019. He's working off the money that would be owed him that was fully guaranteed going forward. So obviously it's going to be a bigger number. His APY.
So you're saying that inflated the normal price tag a little bit because they already owed him a lot of money from that 5th year. Okay, I got you.
And I think
I get what you're saying. Sure.
Yeah. So, and his was done. With Dax was done on March 6th, 2021. Jerry Jones, like he does too often, they wait, and then the agent had leverage, did a great job on the contract. $42 million on a 3-year APY, and then you get to Kyler Murray. Now they did his super early. He got a 5-year extension. It's off the, So I think in fact, what they did is to make it work with the cap, they lowered his base salaries, gave him fully guaranteed option bonuses. They used some of the Eagles structure. Yeah, but it's 46.1 million average per season. 3-year average is just under 50 million, 49 million. 189.5 total guarantees. It's got a interesting structure. Again, he had it. It's in fact. Let me take a quick look.
Well, while you look, let me ask you a question because I've talked to some agents about this and you get different answers. But some will just tell you the market is the market, meaning I get what you're saying about Kyler Murray having an inflated APY because they already owed him money, so it's money on top of money. But some agents would say, well, Kyler Murray's making $46 million. My quarterback has won more than Kyler Murray and had a better year than Kyler Murray. So let the negotiation start at 47. You know what I'm saying? Like that, the market is the market. They don't care that the Cardinals either A, overpaid, or B, had to have a bigger number because of the money already on Kyler's contract. They're just going to say, hey, that's the top APY right now. My guy's better than that guy. Let's start the negotiations there. Doesn't mean the team has to agree to that, but that's what an agent would normally do.
They would, but here's the thing. Right, but let's just assume he continues on this pace, right? You know, you look at the schedule. The coach is doing a great job with him. He's processing much better. He's just playing at an exceptional level. Let's just assume he plays very well the rest of the season. Now, in the playoffs, we'll have to see. Let's give him a win in the play. They actually could be the number 1 seed, so they only won by now in each conference. No, we don't have 2 anymore per conference, but let's say they get a win. They get to they get the bye. They get to the championship game. And lose, to me, they're extending this contract. There's no question. I don't see any way that they don't, unless they don't get the number 1 seed, which is hard to believe that would happen. And they have a bad playoff game like he had against Tampa. Although there were some extenuating circumstances too. Offensive line was beat up, didn't have this group of talent around him. But okay, let's say he doesn't play well. The Eagles would have leverage to offer him a lower deal. Now, he doesn't have to sign it. He doesn't have to do it. Again, he's signed through next season, but being in this market, it's hard to imagine that he would play on this contract almost no matter what, because he's kind of their guy with Wentz long gone. You'd really, and this plays into it, you'd really rather not use that Saints pick on a quarterback if you could help it. We'll get to some of their other needs. But to me, you'd really rather not spend it on a quarterback if at all possible.
Right. And the Eagles do have some slight leverage here, more than slight, because if he doesn't want to accept their terms, he still has to play under, unless he holds out, which has never really been a good thing for guys at his position. He would have to A, play under his 4th-year deal, and then B, the Eagles would still have 1 and potentially 2 year. They could do what Washington did with Kirk Cousins and basically run it all the way, run the tank to empty, play on one franchise tag. Then it's not a smart idea, by the way. It's way too much money. But again, if he would not want to agree and he feels like he can bet on himself for 3 straight years, he can do that and then go into free agency in 3 years from after this year and probably be the first $60 million quarterback a year. I don't know by then
It's just
what
not
the number will be.
right. It's just not like the Eagles to let that happen.
I agree.
I know it's just not like them. They lock their young guys up for years to come. We've talked about this before. The one guy that spurned them was Michael Lewis, a safety, who signed a decent deal with the Niners. This is what, mid 2000s after the Super Bowl year against Tennessee, against New England in Jacksonville. But I think when you look at this situation, they treat their guys good. I think if he just continues on this pace, to me, the floor is $40 million. Could it be a Murray deal, maybe with a little bit better structure? Sure. It's just again, you've got the thing with Murray is he signed 2 years early because of the 5th year option. There's no fit. That's where the comparable is a little bit harder because the circumstances are different based on that 5th year option, where there is no Hurts only has a 4-year deal. And by the way, you talked about him playing on next year's deal. There's no way there's no way. There's just no way.
The Eagles wouldn't let that happen, and
neither would his agent.
Right.
Take $1.331 million. No way in hell.
Right. Too bad football doesn't have an arbitration.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because it's funny you say. So is there any way they could find another contract that's a bridge if they can't agree? See, this Derek Carr deal. So you got devils in the details. If you really look at it, it's so unbelievably team friendly. So I'm going to give you this one. I can't imagine he would think of Hurts should not do a deal like this. It was a 3-year extension. It's just over 40 million, 40.47 million. The total guarantees are 65 million. Again, it was a bridge contract because remember he was on the final year of his deal. But the problem is it only has 1 year of fully guaranteed money. What happens is now this is a structure that some agents use with the Seahawks because the Seahawks they have a massive signing bonus typically, and they only do a 1 year of fully guaranteed money. But the Raiders don't do that; they do a different structure. So what Carr did is, in a second year, this is a smart thing that some agents do. His base salary of $32.9 million becomes fully guaranteed the 3rd day after the Super Bowl.
Right.
So they'd have to cut him before that, which they're obviously not going to do. He'll be their guy, and that's where see what happens is teams don't like putting money in escrow because in the 2020 CBA, 75 to 80% of the fully guaranteed money at signing needs to be put in escrow, and that's a lot. That's 33 million at signing is a lot to put in escrow for Mark Davis. So he gets away with. He doesn't have to do it because there was that 32 million only was guaranteed for injury. Right. That's nothing. Those injury guarantees are nothing. But, so
well, I tell you what,
I can't see that.
The one scenario we didn't really run into, but would really be fascinating to see from a contract standpoint, is if he goes all the way and wins the Super Bowl.
Oh, look!
Now you're talking.
Oh, if he wins a Super, okay. I'll tell you what.
Have to, 45 to 50 million a year.
Sure. Okay, so now that will do. We're going to revisit these probably in January.
Yep.
So, particularly if the Eagles get a bye week, we'll probably update this and what other people think that we talked to about what that deal could look like. Because again, the Mahomes one is a joke. Now what you could say, and Josh Allen is brilliant. Well, he didn't play well against the Jets. He's recognized largely around the league as being the best quarterback in football. But he signed a 6-year extension worth 43 million. The total guarantees are 150 million at signing. The 43 million a year. But now the fully guaranteed money was exceptional at signing. That's the thing that you like. If the club gets the break on the length, get him locked up for 6 years, you better get a great full guaranteed signing. And his was Tom Conley got a pretty good signing, full guaranteed signing.
Yeah.
So there's a give and take. That one, by the way, was done on August 7th, 2021. There's a give and take. The way it works, folks, is the shorter the deal, where obviously the agent gets a break. And if you're doing like a 3-year deal, you should get that all fully guaranteed. It's ridiculous if you don't at this point. Carr didn't, and he he actually said that when he was interviewed. Why did you take a deal like this? He said he wanted to do right by the team so they could bring back other players like Waller and other guys. So.
Okay. By the way, it irks me a little bit, and I get why league people say this and believe this, and I'm not saying there might not be a shred of truth to it, but it does irk me that for some people the torch has been passed from Mahomes to Allen when Allen has not won a Super Bowl. He has not appeared in 3 straight Super Bowls. I mean, I still think when I watch Patrick Mahomes, I think I see magic sometimes when a magical player. When I watch Josh Allen, I just think I'm seeing a great play. I guess it's a little different. No, I'm not trying to take anything away from Josh Allen. I just think that until he does what Mahomes has done, like he should be considered the best quarterback in the league. But we're also splitting hairs. They're both amazing.
Honestly, you're absolutely right. In fact, that's why when Mahomes got that deal, I know he did it early.
Mm-hmm.
A 10-year deal, and there's certain triggers. If he's on the roster at this point, the money becomes fully guaranteed. The next year, what's called an advance guarantee.
Yeah,
but still very team friendly.
Yes, that was nice of him.
Yeah, and boy, Brady did so many team friendly deals with the Patriots. He really shouldn't have done, but he.
Yep.
I don't know what they said to him. I don't know what Belichick said to him, but Robert Kraft did, but they got him to do it. But the fact of the matter is, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens here because this is only Hurts. By the way, this is only his second full year as a starter. First one was shaky.
Right.
This one has been brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting. I got to ask some more people. Is there anyone who's done something like this before? Was not a first round pick, who breaks out in his second year as a starter? That's an interesting one. Dak was good immediately. That's the difference.
Right. Right. Yeah, let's see Josh Allen have to lose Stephon Diggs and the way Patrick Mahomes has lost Tyreek Hill, by the way, who's having an incredible year.
Oh my god!
And see if he can keep it up.
And right. Kudos to Mike McDaniel. Very kudos to Mike McDaniel for junking the Shanahan. We have to run first offense, and they're throwing the heck out of it.
Oh, they are. Yeah, Tua's really starting to heat it up too.
Tua playing point guard, getting it out quickly. He's not throwing it downfield far, but what's happening is so many crossers and digs
baby.
And it's ridiculous. I mean, the average per pass attempt might be 10 by the end of the season, which might be an NFL record. But it's so cool watching Mike McDaniel. Their defense has been bad.
I'm telling you, man, Waddle and Hill is a cheat code. That's just not fair. That's really not fair, man.
It's not. You know what's funny? Cosell said last year, prior to that draft, Waddle's draft, he said the closest player to Tyreek Hill that I've seen on tape is Jalen Waddle, and they want to play together.
Crazy. All right, let's talk about the other quarterback. So this to me raises a fascinating sort of look into what the Eagles do in the future, given how they treat this position. Because Gardner Minshew is going to be a free agent, or his contract is up after this year. I don't know we'll see what kind of market there would be for him. So you'd think the Eagles if they could bring him back, you'd think they'd want to, but I know he's burning. He's got a burning desire to be a starter. So I don't know if anybody's going to give him that opportunity or contract, but he might find a team with a less stable quarterback situation. There's certainly a lot of them where he feels like maybe he can get in there sooner than, having to get in there with the Eagles, especially if Jalen Hurts signs a long-term deal.
Yeah, man, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Like, he at least will be able to. He would love to compete for it,
right?
At least to start. It sure as heck is not going to happen here. I don't know where he could go to compete for it. I just don't think that there's any coach who's going to say, okay, yeah, or general manager says, okay, yeah, let's bring him in. He'll compete for the starting job. It's an excellent backup, terrific backup.
Definitely.
No, now this season. He is making on the final year of his deal, what, 2.5? Yeah, $2.54 million. So that's I could see him making up to $5 million as being one of the better backups. That's kind of what he's looking at, between $3 and $5 million.
Right.
The Eagles, I'm sure, would love to have him.
Yep.
But if not, that's it. They'll look elsewhere. It's not a big deal. They could find that. You could find a backup. It's not hard to do.
Well, as soon as they sign Jalen Hurts to an extension, if that's what they wind up doing, it's going to be fascinating to see if what they would pay their backup, if Gardner Minshew or whatever, or if they go to the draft again, high in the draft, to address the backup.
Don't you
position.
start, Mosher.
No. I'm serious. Like, that's their motto, right? That's what they We
Quarterback
didn't
factory.
like the decision, but that's still not going to change their minds. If anything, Jalen Hurts' ascent is going to solidify in their mind that is the thing to do. You take a good backup quarterback in the second round. So
that was incredible.
Fascinating.
I don't know if they would. I can't believe they would do that again. Oh my God.
It worked out for them. They literally would have no reason not to.
But it worked out the backwards way. Remember, Wentz won it out.
Yeah, but even regard that. Let's say Wentz had just gotten hurt and Jalen Hurts played like for the year towards
which
ACL,
is what that's why they did it. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, they tell you the quarterback position is the most important. You have to treat it differently. So I just think, and if you're going to pay this guy 40 to 50 million, you're going to need a backup who's making very little money. And then maybe Ian Book will be that guy. I don't know what they think.
Oh, that's right. Now he fits because he's athletic. They like him. He's really smart.
Right.
Apparently good in the classroom. Got coaches like him. Good for the scout team. But as you see, here's the thing though. Your number 2 quarterback's one injury away from being the starter.
Mm-hmm.
They have to ask themselves, and by the way, they claimed Ian Book off waiver from the Saints. Is he really ready to be a starter next year? If they, I don't see that. Minshew clearly could do it.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. As you just said, you kind of have to know, and nothing that we've heard would say that. Now we'll see what happens next couple months, but it's fascinating, and there'll be some plenty. There's like funny. No quarterbacks are traded at the deadline, but you had Joe Flacco was demoted, by the way, to third string. Mike White's the second stringer for the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Mason Rudolph was the third stringer, making good money for the Steelers. There's always guys available to be backup, so you don't need to sweat this one, folks.
All right, let's go to the running back position because that's the other big contract we get asked about.
Big one. This is tough.
It is tough. It's tough, and I just don't even know if there's a comp. So let's have the discussion before we even bring up Miles Sanders and contract. The problem, this is sort of like quarterbacks too. The problem with running backs is that it's hard to find a middle class. You're either a dynamic running back like Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley's probably going to get paid. He's having a great year now. We'll see. Or like Austin Eckler. You're putting up huge numbers, or if you're not that guy, most of the time you're in a committee. You're like a 1A or a 1B or a 1C or something like that. There's not too many guys like Miles Sanders who are just, you're a starting running back. You're good. You haven't been extended yet, but you're not great. So, I don't even know where to begin. I see.
I'll help you.
James Conner, but like, you'd have to think. You agree that Miles Sanders is better than James Conner. I think James Conner's a great story, but Miles Sanders is a better running back.
What happened? Okay, what happened with Conner was he had a monster year last year. Monster, like a ton of
monster touchdown year.
Yes,
he did not have a monster yards or yards per carry.
No, but he had a ton of touchdowns. Productive though. Here's the problem with it. Here's the problem with the Conner contract, and this is what you were talking about. There's really no comparable contract for Sanders because all the top guys are making 12.5 million a year. Sanders is he's a good player. He's not in the Kamara territory.
Right.
He's not in Derrick Henry territory for sure.
Sure. And his durability is clearly a question, even though this year he stayed healthy. I mean, you have to look at the whole package.
Right. And Nick Chubb is an absolute stud. Now he's had an injury history, but he's having a great year. He's also making 12.5 million a year. You can't really find
pure running back in the league.
He's so special. You can't find any comparable contract. I've gone through them, and Austin Eckler's was done so many years ago, and that was super duper team friendly. It was a super friendly contract. Yeah. So what Sanders agents could do, they could see what happens with Barkley's contract. I understand Barkley's a better football player. I get that. He's also had a ton of injuries.
Yeah.
But just see. Let's say it comes in at 11 million. I'm just giving you. If it does, by the way, they might let him walk.
Mm-hmm.
But he's having a heck of a year. He's been like Superman.
Right.
See what happens with David Montgomery. See what happens with some of these other guys, and then they can wait. Or by the way, they could tag him if they don't want to pay him long term. Give him the 1 year tag, which is it would be reasonable.
Right.
That's fully guaranteed at signing, and it can't be massage. You have to pay him that kind of money. But the fact of the matter is, there are just not a lot of comparables. It's the Conner contract is too low. I agree with you, but the other ones they're almost. It's like every agent said, okay, I want 12.25. I want 12.5. Then there's McCaffrey, best in NFL history, which is like I think 17 million a year.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Right.
It's like the George Kittle contract. It was so above market. Like the Niners did a contract that they're not used to, and agents want that, but they're not getting.
Yeah, the Gurley contract even before that was also
Oh,
a resetter, and yeah, that
oh,
didn't
it's a
work out
great
too well.
point. That was so bad because he had an arthritic knee. It's boy, the Rams are like the sugar daddies for free agents.
They are.
Al Davis used to be the late Al Davis was for agents. He would do a lot of contracts that were agent friendly.
Hmm.
The Rams do, but look, the Rams have also been very good for many years. You can't blame them. But that's the before we move on here. That's the complexity of the running back position. There are just no mid level deals here.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're right. It can be done though. Uh, I start to think more and more that maybe the Eagles will figure out a way to bring him back because he's not going to break the bank. Um, but you might be able to find that middle ground, and you might be able to get most of that guaranteed money in the first 2 years of a 3-year deal or year and a half. So it's not that exorbitant. I feel like there's something there for that. I don't know
Well,
if Miles will get more than a 3-year deal in free agency.
no,
It's
but what you can do, okay,
Mhm.
right? On what you can do is based on what you just said, you could do a 2-year deal for 20 million and fully guarantee both years. That
Yeah.
way the
Yep.
club wins on the APY,
Yep.
and then Sanders gets the second year fully guaranteed or gets first year fully guaranteed plus maybe 50% of it.
Right.
And then maybe per game roster bonuses because of his injury history. There are creative ways to get what you're talking about
Yep.
with his injury history. And they I know the way they think. I mentioned on a previous show about Jordan Hicks.
Hmm.
They would have offered him, but it never got to it because the Cardinals, for the life of me, why would you pay with Jordan Hicks' injury history 10 million a year? What it's a linebacker for goodness sake. It's a
Right.
position you could just fill and running back. Eagles would have no problem walking away if he continues to kick ass Sanders and he does well in the playoffs.
Hmm.
It wouldn't be. They could still walk away. It's just that they have the leverage here. It's a position that you could find the draft. I know it's a general statement, but that's just the way teams think.
Yeah, no, I actually
They would
wonder
have
if
leverage.
that'll factor into their thinking that, they can find a pretty good run with their offensive line and the way they build their team and with Jalen Hurts' ability to open up the running back running game because they have to respect him. Do you feel like you can
Sure.
get a late 2, early 3 running back who can give you very close to what Miles Sanders gives you?
Sure.
Probably. Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Well, then the other thing is because they're down some picks. They I know a lot of people think like they'll trade that Saints pick down to get more picks, which seems reasonable.
Hmm.
But that's something they have to take a look at next year. But that's see the problem is because it's one thing if they only had 2 or 3 free agents,
Right.
then you could say, okay, we could take care of them. We could give Miles a little bit more,
Hmm.
but it, we're going to breeze through a little bit some of these on offense because there's not many left on
Right.
offense. But
Right.
it's you can't pay everybody big money. You just can't. It's the other problem is they've done so many restructures over the years
Hmm.
that stuff's going to kick in. These cap numbers are going to be ridiculous for some of these players they restructured in the future. Now, what helps though, 2023 is the first year of the $100 billion NFL deal with all their media partners.
Oh boy.
The cap's going to go up.
Yes, it will. Big time. All right. That'll be interesting to see how much money gets pushed into that year, by the way, on these extensions. You know what I'm
Yes.
talking, you know what I'm saying? Like you can guarantee someone's contract that year, that their base salary that year, more so maybe than the year after or before, just because, or more money in that year, I mean. So we'll see. All right. So let's go through two other skill position players. There's Boston Scott and Zach Pascal. I wonder if Boston Scott's fate with the Eagles, Adam, is sort of tied to what happens with Miles. If Miles walks, does that make it maybe more likely that Boston comes back on another 1-year deal? I don't know.
Well, they gave him a really strong deal for a guy who doesn't play very much.
Yeah.
No, he does. He plays specials, but 175, 1.75 million, 1.1 million was fully guaranteed this season. That surprised me that they gave him that kind of
I mean, the
deal.
guy gets like 2 touches a game sometimes
That's my
at
point.
most. That's a lot
Yeah,
of money for that.
that
Yeah.
was very fair. They did him really well. Plus Gainwell, and Trey Sermon's still on the roster.
Hmm.
But yeah, obviously that's a 1-year deal. In fact, I don't know to even make that. If he comes back, I don't know. I don't even know if they would offer him that much. That's a little bit rich for me, but good for
Right.
him.
Right.
And then Pascal is a teacher's pet, so he got a little bit over 1 million this season. But the big ones though, obviously, are Kelce if he wants to come back.
Oh man, what do you do
We've
if
learned our
Kelce wants to
lesson
come
here.
back?
What's
I
that?
guess you bring him back, right?
You have to. He's still exceptional.
He
We
is.
all know what he means to this organization. The coaches and the players love him. What he means to the city. He's still an elite player. It's hard to believe it. 30 is he 35 yet? 34.
He'll be 35. Don't you get the feeling that if they
Mm.
win the Super Bowl, he's probably going to come back again?
He just turned 35 last week. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got the feeling like if they won the Super Bowl, he'd walk off to the sunset. But when you're playing at that high of a level, it's probably hard to just say, why would I stop? Right. I mean,
He's
why would he?
right. As he said many times, we've talked to people close to him. He continues to tell people, it depends how I feel. Depends how I feel. Because he felt relatively good after last season.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's funny, both sides the last couple years said, okay, this is it. We're going to put the poison pill in. He's not coming back. He comes back. So they have to redo it every year,
Right.
1 year deal. They can't play on the deal. They have to go back and redo it.
Right.
It's just funny the way that they do these contracts. And they took care of him, man. They 14.25 million at 34 years old when he signed that contract. So yeah, good for them. And I'll tell you what, the Eagles, they take care of their players, man.
You think
Really
Isaac
do.
Sayamalu is like, hey, Jason, are you sure you don't want to retire? Because, if
Yeah,
Jason
well,
comes
yeah, but
back, they're
see,
going to look
okay.
at right guard and say, we have Cam Jurgens
Oh,
here.
yeah, but see, Jurgens is going to be the center.
He's going to be. I'm saying if Jason comes back, they're not going to sit Jurgens behind
Oh,
Kelce for another year.
That's
Adam, come on. You're not going to sit a second round pick for 2 straight years. That's just not going to happen.
I
Especially when
guess
Sayamalu is up and has his
Isaac's up.
injury
Yeah,
history. Like,
yeah, Isaac's up. He's playing well. I guess we haven't even asked that yet. We'll cross that road when we come to it. But
right.
we're only in November here, early November. But it's a fair point. It's a fair point. Heck, Jordan Love is sitting as a first round pick. He's going to sit 40 years. In fact, he'll probably go through his career only starting one game for the.
Yeah, a little bit different because it's a quarterback, and that's been done before.
I know, but
yeah,
no one thought they'd remember he was drafted to replace Rodgers. They never thought he'd be coming back.
right.
But
right.
no, this is a interesting. It's a great as we go through these contracts. Every situation is like a good problem for the Eagles to have.
Mm-hmm.
Wait till we get the linebacker. That's. I told you, folks, it would not embarrass you. I promised you that.
That you were right about that. All right, the only 2 other guys really on offense are Opeta, who will be a restricted free agent. So you imagine you tender him and bring him back.
Low tender. Yep.
Yeah, with low tender, right? And then Andre Dillard, who you imagine he's going to walk, sign a contract, and you hope that it helps you in the comp pick formula.
Sure. Yeah.
That's about it.
Well, right, because you let him walk. Driscoll will enter 23 on the last year of his rookie deal.
Mm-hmm.
He's the left tackle if you're really in dire straits, but he's better at right tackle or if you need him at guard. Here's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Would you draft? In fact, I'm sure they'll do that. If I mean, obviously, it's super highly unlikely Dillard returns, but let's assume he's leaving. Do they draft a left? Do they just a swing tackle?
Yeah, I mean, are you asking me if they draft him in the first round or just
no? But rounds 2 or 3.
Absolutely.
Lane's getting older. Lane
absolutely.
Johnson is great. Arguably the NFL's best tackle. He turns 33 in May. He's had injuries. Great player, but
no. Hey, listen. If there's one thing I'm learning about the Eagles, in their more recent, last 5-6 years, I guess, or since Howie came back, the positions that they prioritize, they really prioritize. So, I mean, they have gone and drafted offensive linemen in the second round the last 2 years now with Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson, when you can make much stronger arguments that they needed cornerback and safety, so or linebacker. So they prioritize, and it's working out. That's not a criticism. It's working out for them. So they know how important it is to have your 6th offensive lineman is basically a starting offensive lineman for them. So if there's a guy in the second round, he projects, and especially if he can play guard and tackle, I would not put it past them at all. Not at all.
It's funny talking to a Giants source. They study, they looked and they know Philly's got a lot of linemen and how well they do with it.
Mm-hmm.
They're projecting 13 or 14 linemen under contract next year. The Giants are. Of all the problems they've had, they're actually getting it right.
Makes sense.
Yeah, look, Brandon Brown's. That's right, Brandon Brown's there, so he would know.
You mean linemen on both sides of the ball?
No, offensive. I'm sorry, offensive.
13 offensive linemen under contract?
Potentially. So this is with, so the Giants right now, because they've got, Jack Anderson's there. Evan Neal, Glowinski, Feliciano, Azudu, Thomas,
Mm-hmm.
Nick Gates, who got hurt. Tyree Phillips, they brought over for Baltimore's pretty good. Shane Lemieux.
Right.
There are a couple other guys that don't. They were just they.
Yeah, I
So
guess if you
Matt
count the
Peart,
practice squad guys too, because they are under a contract, that makes sense. Yeah, because the Eagles have about that,
well, they're projecting. Well, I'd say this: they're projecting bringing back with all based on guys who are under contract for next year, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere between 12. I think the number was given 12 to 14 guys. They're
Mm.
projecting that they probably would want to bring back. That's how happy they are with the way they built their offensive line. Because people look at the receiver core and we all say, "How the hell are they scoring?
Wow.
How are they winning with it?"
Right.
Right now, your guy David Stills is almost a starter for them. Darius Slayton, who they try to trade, right?
My guy.
Marcus Johnson, former Eagle. I forgot about that.
Yeah, how about that? The Giants are building. They're starting to get it right.
Yeah.
They're good management.
Great
and
defense,
staff.
by the way.
Yeah, definitely. All right, that'll be. Hey, man, Giants, Cowboys, Eagles next year could be a real battle royale.
Yep.
I think all these teams have wisely, and the Washington's kind of built on the lines too. They just can't get their act together ever. So, they've built on the defense.
Nothing like this.
Yeah, they haven't built on the offensive line very well.
Nobody does like the Eagles, but that's so that's offense, folks. Again, we're doing this in November. We're not doing this in February, so there's a lot that we need to learn. But this is just a basic run through based on what we know, some comparable contracts. The toughest one is Sanders. I don't know. I think $10 million a year is a bridge contract, but we'll learn more as we go along. So that is the offensive.
All right, we'll get to defense in a second. I want to tell everybody to make sure you're checking out our friends at phlsportsnation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. We'll pause real quick for another word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you happen to stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. And if you can't make it in, just go to skymotorcars.com. All right. Defense. I laugh because this is so much more complex and also so much more steep because there are so many guys. Like this entire defense could look completely different next year.
Okay.
Let's start up front.
Right. Well, Cox is always, if he comes back, it's a 1-year deal. I'm not rolling. See, we're so early here, folks.
Can't rule it out.
I really don't see both he and Hargrave coming back.
Agreed.
Certainly one is in play. Cox is just, okay, 14 million was an exorbitant number. He flashes still. There are games where he's just not good. The Detroit game was obviously his worst game of the year. Their line got moved. Over time, he got better because I think obviously he watches the tape and goes, okay, I got to be better.
Right.
But you still see inconsistency. He's still a leader.
Yep.
Still a good player, but he's nowhere near the player he once was. So the question is, there's really no comparable contract because of his age. It's just a matter of, would you really pay him 14 next year? I can't imagine they would do that.
Well, here's the thing. He's got 3 sacks in 8 games now. So he's on pace for 6.5 sacks, which for an interior defensive tackle is pretty good. And what did he have? He had less than that last year, and they brought him back on a $14 million deal. So what would make you think that they wouldn't bring him back again as long as he's playing at the level he's playing at right now? He had 3.5 sacks last year, Adam. So he's a half a sack away.
Those are individual plays. You got to go through the hundreds of plays that he has in the season and go, okay, you grade each
sacks. But I think he's been no worse than last year, and in some cases, I think he may be a little bit better than last year.
I think it's been up and down. I think you see that he could still clearly play. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, he's just at 32 years old, which he turns next month. You have to ask yourself, what are you willing to pay? Because Jordan Davis has to play. He has to play a lot next year. I'm not saying every down, but if he was going to average in the low 20 snaps per game this season, we don't even know when he's coming back from his injury.
Right.
But you assume that he's going to average between 20, 25 plays this season. He's got to be in the 40s per game next year. So he's a starter.
Right.
You only have room for one more guy.
Well, I agree. I think as we talk about Cox and Hargrave, I think it's one or the other.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't think both won't be back. I don't think both will be back. I think one or the other. Now logic would say or common sense might say, oh well, it'll be Hargrave because he's younger and he's been productive. But I don't know. Who knows? Who knows?
Well, the word around the team was he really wanted to be back. Like he didn't really want to play anywhere in 2022. It's, I guess, whatever issues
Cox you're
that
talking about, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Whatever issues he had with Gannon were resolved. I think both have talked about it. Their issues last year, but so he lives in, I guess, South Jersey or something. He's happy here.
Oh yeah.
He wanted to come back, but again, what do you? I'm not paying him $14 million for inconsistent play. That's a big number. I get that the guy's won a Super Bowl with him, unbelievable first round pick, but you can't at 32 years old, turns 33 in next season, in late next season. That's a 14 million is a lot of money.
Yeah, but they paid him that this year, even despite inconsistent play. So I don't know if you're Todd France, you're his.
But are you going to play him as much? But here's off that. Are you going to play as many snaps? That's how you. Also, it's also are you going to play as many snaps? I would say no.
Probably not.
I'm going to draft. I'm going to draft somebody.
If you lose Hargrave,
yeah,
you're still not. It's not like again Jordan Davis is going to play 100% of the snaps next year. So right. I don't know. You're going to need two guys next to Jordan Davis in your 5-man front. One of them would be Fletcher Cox. Who would the other one be? Milton Williams? Are you ready for that?
No, that's a great point. And two things off that. Number one, they have to see we don't even, because we're in November now. What's the draft look like for D tackle? I'm not saying they would draft one in the first round again, but could it be a second round pick?
Sure could though. I mean, it wouldn't shock me. Yeah,
absolutely. In fact, they could use someone as a little bit more of a pass rusher than Jordan Davis. To me, not that you're going to find a Fletcher Cox in the draft. See, everything we're talking about plays into when you're trying to decide if you're going to pay Cox if you're going to pay him 14 to 15 million for 23, he's got to play 70% of snaps. I don't know if he's that good anymore to do that.
I would agree with you. The money has to match. Forget production. Of course, you want that to happen. You can't predict it, but the money at least has to match the time played. Yeah, your snaps.
Can't be a part-time player. Great. Give me 5. To me, you got to get younger. Fletcher's a Hall of Fame Eagle player. He'll be in the Eagles Hall of Fame when he's done playing. Been an incredible first-round pick, but that is then. This is now. He's just you got to get younger at that position. Milton Williams, they see him as a rotational guy. He's very good in that role, and that's that.
Fletcher Cox is what he has in his advantage is he has an agent who knows how to get his clients money.
Big time deals.
You may be right. It might not be 14 million, but he ain't coming back on some hometown discount either.
No, so, but again, they have to make that decision. How many snaps is he going to play?
Right.
And they'll know based on the draft. If it's like an unbelievable D tackle draft, they're going to have a little bit more leverage. So we'll have to see. Now, the question before we move on here, with Hargrave, he was making 13 million a year. Boy, that was a market deal. That was a phenomenal deal that he got.
Yep.
And he's obviously had his moments. He got off to a slow start, I think, because of the toe injury. He was great the last game. I know some people are saying, is the game that he had against the Texans is a contract drive? I mean, I don't know the guy, but it sure seems like, yeah.
He had a good one against the Steelers, too. It's sort of been back-to-back really good games now.
Right.
Yeah.
They actually mentioned it. Steelers
at least against the pass, I should say.
He did well, though.
Run defense is just never going to be his thing. I think I'm come around to that now.
But this game was phenomenal. The Houston game was maybe his best game as an Eagle. And he, too, is getting up there. You have to ask yourself this question. You could argue that he turns 30 in February. How much are you going to pay these older guys?
Yeah, well, and then that sort of brings us to the next guy, Robert Quinn, who's going to be he'll get to free agency.
His contract's been filed. Yeah, the restructure's been filed, so they chopped off the last 2 years. So
doesn't mean he can't come back, though. I mean,
this is a down the line. First of all, he hasn't had a full practice week yet. The first week he didn't work on Wednesday, And the next week they only walk through. So people are killing them, Eagles, over this. Can you let the guy play 4 or 5 games?
Yeah, seriously.
Get some practices in. It's man, people overreact. Like, he's washed. I love that. That's my favorite term on Twitter. Oh, he's washed. That's it. He's done. I mean, come on, you let the guy practice? Jeez.
Oh man.
Anyway.
No, but yeah, I mean, obviously they probably want to get younger at that position because they're, you've got Reddick, who next year will go into year 2. You've got Sweat, who will be in the final year of his extension next year, right? It was a 3-year deal 3 years ago.
He did a 3-year extension. In fact, he is signed for, of course, he has 3-year void. You are correct, sir.
Yeah, and then they really don't have
24.
Talked about many times. They don't really have a natural overhang defender who's like, other than Gardner-Johnson and Patrick Johnson, who were very low round picks. They don't really have a guy that's waiting in the wings to be a starter there. So that's another, man. Our offseason stuff, we thought it was great this past year. Even it's going to be 10 times more just profound this coming offseason. There's going to be so much to deal with and talk about. Especially the draft too.
Yes, that I can't wait. We'll get Cosell back for that.
Yep.
Also, so Sweat signed through 24. Yeah, that's another. Well, they don't, because you look at when you're putting together a roster, GMs will say they're looking 3 years out, but they'll deal with that Sweat when it comes. He's still very, very good. In fact, they play a little wide 9 each game, and he seems to do better when they play more of that. So
yeah.
So that's it. So Hargrave and Cox. One, I agree with you. One will come back. One won't. They'll let it play out, see who does well. And again, you can't pay everybody. I know the cap's going up, but they've restructured so many contracts. These cap numbers are ridiculous. What you get to Slays? He could be. People want to know who they'll extend before the end of the season. We'll get to Slay in a second because he might be a guy they target because his cap number is so absurd next year. But linebacker is the tough one because there are 2 linebacker. I call up. Yes, is Reddick a linebacker? Yeah, but he's an edge rusher. Okay, he's on another island.
We're talking about 2 stacked coverage linebackers here: Kyzir White, C.J. Edwards. Yeah.
Yep, and Edwards. This is such a great problem to have. Who the hell knew? I mean, I cannot.
How do you let him go? How do you let him go, Adam?
All right. Well, this is the toughest one for these people who are doing the contracts. Roseman and his group, as you just said. How do you let him go? He's been an unbelievable story as an undrafted free agent. He couldn't cover you 2 years ago. He's so instinctive now.
Yep.
I think you had a note on a show actually a year ago, was it? That you said he was working. What was it? He was working on his drops or his coverage stuff, or
I think it almost was 2 years ago now that he was he had dropped weight since his rookie year. I mean, he tried to get his body more acclimated to be a rangier linebacker. At Wisconsin, he was a big downhill linebacker, and he's probably not as big as he's not small by any means, but he's not as big as he used to be. And he worked on his training that offseason. I guess this would be 2 off seasons ago, and really tried to improve that element of his game, not just be a one-dimensional downhill linebacker. And lo and behold, that training has paid off. I mean, he's their best linebacker. He's really good, and that's saying something now because Kyzir White's been pretty good. So I don't know. You know what? Listen, I will not. I know this will piss the fans off. I know it will piss the fans off. But what I would do was I would bring both of these guys back and continue to keep Nakobe Dean as a reserve, who probably will get used because guys miss time, guys get injuries, it happens. Sure. So, but I don't want to walk away from either of these guys, and I don't think they're going to be all that expensive either because it's sort of one of those fungible NFL positions. So I unless one of the agents for these guys knows that another team is really going to pony up a lot of money for them, then you may have to make that decision. But I would keep him. I know it sucks. I know everybody's waiting for Nakobe Dean.
No, people like TJ. Yeah. No, he's there are a couple of TJ truthers out there.
Yeah, but you know how many questions we get about Nakobe. Why isn't he on the field? Why?
I know, but it's because he's got a great. What do you? It's like I said at the start of this thing. The Eagles have a lot of good problems when you're really good and you draft and develop. The last 2 drafts on paper look very good. They've made up for various mistakes in 17 and 18, 19. And the Mailata, 18. Actually, 18 was a really good draft of the 4 players they have. But the Mailata pick is like, you can't depend on those kind of things. But hey, those count.
Right.
And TJ Edwards too,
by the way. Would you agree? Would you just try to re-sign both of these starting linebackers? And
that's what I'm getting to. So I would say one definitely has to be back.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
again,
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but you have to play it out. But let's see the next 2 months
Right.
playoffs, because based on what we were told, no one is exposed to either linebacker. Edwards has been incredible
Mm-hmm.
in pass coverage compared to where he used to be, where he was a liability. Now he's actually a plus. That's why he plays at nickel. He didn't even come off the field. That's why Dean can't even go on the field. Folks, I'm with you. Love if you want to see the Kobe Dean, I'm with you. I'd love to see him, but they can't justify it. What can you do?
By the way, was it Kyzir White who had that? Damian Pierce had a huge run right early in the game, and he broke out over the middle and was running. He had a 30-something yard run, if I'm not mistaken. And I think Kyzir White was the one who tracked him
I think
down.
so. Yeah, I
I
think
couldn't
so.
believe it. He's like
Thought it was. Yeah.
It reminded me of the Willie Mays Hayes in Major League when he wakes up in his pajamas and he realizes he was cut and he still beats everybody running to first base.
I mean,
It was just like Kyzir White came out of nowhere.
he's a player, man. Well, remember, wasn't he? He was what, a safety from coming out of
He
college?
was a safety. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He can
And,
move, man. No,
he just brings that bulldog attitude to, oh man, I
he's.
just said dog mentality, didn't I?
You saw it. Yeah, it's funny. But here's the thing. Before we move on to DBs,
Uh-huh.
you can't really justify, based on if this continues, you can't justify walking away from these guys. You just can't. Now, before we move on, the Eagles have the leverage here because they got Dean in the waiting. Dean in waiting. We know their history of not paying linebackers. They're more than willing to walk away. They did, as I said earlier, with 58 Jordan Hicks.
Mm-hmm.
They're always willing to walk away with linebackers. Now it's not only we have to go back to the Super Bowl year. It's really it's just been such a nightmare. Nate Gary, who, by the way, I think he was elevated off the practice squad. Like, he's still hanging in there. But the years of Nate Gary and these other guys, they're past that now. They've taken forever, seemingly, to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect one to stay. Now, both, I would have to think one would be team friendly. I just think you can't pay everybody. They got Dean waiting. That's their leverage.
Yeah, I think these guys have been really good, but I'm sort of not worried if I'm the Eagles that someone's gonna blow them out of the water with some landmark deal that's gonna pay him like more than Fred Warner makes or something like that. So
oh hell no,
no, that's my point. Is
but I hear what you mean. Yeah,
I'd bring him back. I really would. I know, and trust me, I think some fans would be annoyed by it, not because they don't like these guys, but because they want to see Nakobe Dean so badly.
But let me ask you this: have you seen anything that says that fans don't like White or Edwards? Folks, I don't. We see this stuff on our message board and YouTube. I don't see anyone saying. I mean, I know you're right that they would love Dean to play, but they seem to like. They say it. They're watching every second of every game. I mean, it's been incredible. Like, again, they're not embarrassing to anyone anymore.
No, they're not.
It's a great story. We don't have to. Folks are new to our show. Going through 2020 is Alex Singleton late for a tackle because of the Jim Schwartz scheme, and the way that they were stacking linebackers and how bad the tape was. It was the same bleep every week, and we were sick and tired of talking to linebackers. It was pathetic.
Yeah,
they're actually a strength.
Duke Riley, Alex Singleton, Nate Gary. Yeah. That was a rough stretch right there, man.
First of all, I would have to say on that the linebackers are comparable to the dregs of the receiver corps that they had in 2020.
Yeah,
isn't it unbelievable? They went from having one of the worst NFL rosters at certain positions to one of the best.
Well, I wouldn't call it unbelievable. I would call that cause and effect.
It's because you missed, right?
I would call that. Oh, we were doing terribly there because of those.
But now they're doing. Look,
us. Yeah.
But they got it right. They stuck by Edwards. They could have. By the way, they didn't have to extend his contract after this season because he improved.
True.
And White, look, they've gone through the Corey Nelsons of the world. We've been through this list before of these one-year wonder guys. Who was the dude who retired who came up from the Chargers?
Was it Jatavius Brown?
You nailed it. Jatavius Brown.
Jatavius, yeah.
And he, out of the blue, he retired. Like, man, another guy they got wrong at these smaller linebackers who came in.
Yeah.
But they got it right.
Rough. All right, let's go to the secondary. We'll start with at corner. James Bradberry is yet another guy. We've gotten three. This will be the sixth guy on defense that we're talking about who have his contract expire this year. Now, this is an interesting comp, right? Because he's a veteran corner coming off of a good year. So a lot of times you'll see, a third year or fourth year corner get a big deal, but this is a veteran corner.
Yeah. So Bradberry turns 30 let's see, he turns 30 in August, so he's 30 next season. That's the way NFL teams look at it. What's
Yep.
their age in September? He'll be 30. He was released last year. He's revived his career in a big way. He didn't get we were told he's looking for 10 million. He got 7.25 million, upside up to 10.
Mm-hmm.
There's a playing time, team achievement, and personal achievement in
Hmm.
terms of interceptions.
In other words,
and
he
so
might get
forth.
that
Pro
10,
Bowl.
Adam, the way things are going.
It's well, I'll tell you what, he is right now at Pro Bowl. Like the Eagles arguably have the best cornerback tandem in the NFL right now.
Mm-hmm.
An older tandem. Slate turns 32 in January. To me, he's looking at a $10 million contract, $10 to $12 million a year. The comparables, one guy's younger, one guy's his age. Darius Williams, who I could not believe the Jaguars gave up ridiculous contracts. Darius Williams, who some teams saw as a third cornerback, got 3 years, 30 million. All the guarantees were fully guaranteed at 18 million.
How many teams are mad at the Jaguars for above market dealing everybody this past offseason? And now you got to pay everybody 30% more than you ordinarily would have.
That's probably, that might have been why Trent Baalke did that with his just the contracts there. Because Ronald Darby got 3 years, 30 million, 19.5 million fully guaranteed at sign. Now he just tore his an ACL for the second time. He's 30.
Mm-hmm.
Williams is much younger. Now, if he's a Pro Bowler, voted in, by the way, legit Pro Bowler, I mean, he's got an argument to do a little better than those guys, maybe get 12 million a year with a 2-year structure, because you got to be really careful. You can't go 3 years fully guaranteed. You can't when the guys reach 30, that position. Because generally, guys like Slay's sort of an outlier. The word around the league is when these corners get 30, they lose their legs and their speed. Right. He's not. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Durable, knock on wood, and all that stuff. Leader, players looked up to him. He's been great.
Yes.
Everybody loves him.
Yep.
But to move this along here, you're looking at 10 to 12 million if he continues to kick ass. And to me, you do a 2-year deal or 3-year deal with a 2-year structure. You can get out after 2 years. And now the big one, Slate signed for next season. But folks, to me, if I'm the Eagles, he can't come back on this contract. They've got to lower his. See, they keep restructuring. They restructured last year. They restructured this past March. Next year, his cap. See, this is the tough call here. You can keep kicking the can down the road, but his salary next year, which is not guaranteed, is 17 million. The cap number is 26.01 million. That's just not attainable.
No.
So what you can do it again for the third straight year, you can take his high high salary, lower it to the veteran minimum of 1.1 million, which obviously takes 16 million, around 60 million, and you prorate it.
Over 5 years and make 3 dummy years out of those 5 years. And so, and at 3 or what you said, 16 million, 5 years. So 3 something a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And hope he gets 2 more years.
just like you called it. His last one, 3-year void, 24, 25, and 26. The Eagles are the kings of the 3-year void. And that's it. Who do they do?
Sure. You may want to give him a 4-year void if it's going to be 16 million, because he's probably not going to be on the team beyond 2 more years. So you really don't want to have extra dead money like
on that. On that, we don't know. It's way too early. Again, guys that don't declare until for a couple months, but it's usually around like January 15th. I think these guys declared maybe earlier than that, the underclassmen. But that's going to play all into this thing. Because to me, if you're the Eagles, let's assume Hurts is the guy next year and they extend his contract and all that. They don't spend the Saints pick on a quarterback. To me, now I'm curious where you on this. What is their biggest need going forward? Remember, the draft is about 3 years down the line. What do you think is their biggest need for the future?
Cornerback.
Yep, sir. Home run. That's what I'm thinking.
It's nothing different than the biggest need for the last 3 years.
I mean, I would go corner, edge rusher, D tackle,
safety. I mean, right now, C.J. Gardner-Johnson isn't. They have nobody.
Get to him in a second. He's a tough one. He's. We'll get to him in a second. But
by the way, real quick, because I don't want to. This was on my mind, and while we were talking about it, do you think there will be a day that the dummy years will be negotiated out? Like they will, I know, because they don't take away from a player, so it's okay. They're not.
Yep.
But what's to stop teams from like literally doing Bobby Bonilla type deals at this point and giving like a guy 30 30-year deal, with 20 dummy years on it, and just having little increments of bonus money just spread out that long to help navigate the cap.
Well, it's a mechanism to keep all your players. The Eagles are the kings
Right.
of it.
Right.
A lot of teams do it.
You're just borrowing against tomorrow.
Agents, right. Your agents love it. They're not. They don't. They're not. And they'll do the club right as long as they get what they're looking for in a guaranteed signing.
Sure.
And a good 3-year structure. They're good with it. It's just not every team does it. The Bucks for years were against it. Now they try to keep their team together. They've done some unique things. So it's fascinating to see what happens. But that is linebacker. We just talked about corner. Slay to me would be a guy that I could absolutely see extended, but you have to be able to get out of the contract early.
Yeah,
got to be careful because you got two. If Bradberry comes back, they've got 2 starting corners at 30 years or older.
right.
Be very careful with that. These guys lose their legs, and then to finish us off, 2 guys, C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Marcus Epps. I don't see both coming back. I just don't. Again, there's so many free agents that they have. I'll be honest with you. Gardner-Johnson, I know people knock on that he freelances. He's instinctive.
Mm-hmm.
You're with this kind of an interception in 4 straight games. He's a big play guy. He's he's handled he's handled himself well in terms of the knock on him. He's sort of a big mouth with the Saints, and he can annoy players. You and I had some of his teammates with his constant yakking and jawing, whatever. He's a good dude. He's just he knows what works here. He's doing a great job in terms of what they're asking him to do. It's not perfect. He's still learning the defense, but he's getting better each week. The way it's explained to me on this guy is some of the things he does you can't teach because he sees it before it happens. He does freelance a little bit, but you're going to live with it.
Awful in run defense, but again, whatever he's giving up, he's taking.
You're not
away
the only
with his
one.
Takeaways.
By the way, he's not the only one.
No, he's not. He's not. But he's pretty bad. He's pretty bad.
Was out of position sometimes.
I know. I think that does have a lot to do with
better.
It. Yeah, because he used to be a nickel, and usually nickels know how to run because you have to have run keys as a nickel cornerback. But at safety, it just seems like maybe because he's approaching from different angles now. It's just not been good. But what are you going to do? He's got 5 interceptions, right? So I mean,
and he is 1 in each. That is really hard to do. To have
5 straight games, right?
1 in 4 straight games.
4.
Yeah. So
is it 4 or 5? Yeah.
Right. I think it's 4. It's 5 in 4 games and 4 in
right.
4 straight games. 1 in 4 straight games. That's really hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
Eagles haven't anyone who's a ball hawk. It's not just luck, by the way. People want to say that the Davis Mills one was, but did you see the catch? Did you see the way
he's making really good catch. You're right. The ball's not just popping in the air into his hands. He's going and getting the ball.
That's the point. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah,
that's a great point.
So
this is not.
And I don't see Marcus.
Who was the guy that they had last year? Anthony Harris, who 2 years ago had 6 interceptions and got the franchise tag. Yeah.
Well, Minnesota. It's funny. Minnesota knew he wasn't that good.
Right.
It's like Landon Collins was just a box player. He had 1 year of unbelievable interception production.
Mm-hmm.
He's a box player. He's just not. He was never that good. He was a overhyped guy come out of Alabama, and he had that 1 monster season, and people overpaid. He was going to get overpaid. Washington overpaid. In fact, they had enough of him, so Washington said we're going to move. They were down on him, so they're going to move him to linebacker, and they knew it wouldn't work, so they moved on from him.
Right. All right. So you would bring back one of 2 between Epps and C.J. Gardner-Johnson will probably be back. 1 of 2.
Right. And it's C.J. Gardner-Johnson, the most recent one, Condre Diggs, come back from a very serious injury. He's really a good football player. He got 3 years, $39 million with back to the Seahawks for $13 million a year.
Oh man, that's going to be tough for the Eagles right there.
It's a big one, but I know that's out there. That's the most recent. He's just he's known as a very solid football player.
It's just not a position that I see the Eagles typically. I mean, they did it with Malcolm, right? I mean, they signed him in free agency, but when he was younger.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. We have to think about these things differently, by the way, because they're playing a different style of defense, and maybe safety, in this Vic Fangio style defensive is more important now than it used to be. I don't know.
Well, Eddie Jackson got his mega extension, highest paid safety in NFL history when they were running even after Vic left, they're still running the same scheme.
Right. He's a good save. They have a nice little tandem there with him and Brisker.
Not
Jaquan Brisker.
Yeah, Brisker's second rounder right at Penn State.
Oh, heck yeah, good player, really good player.
Yeah, he's yeah. So it's a great problem to have. The Eagles have a really good roster. It's just so funny because our contract shows over the years we're like, oh, this guy's not very good now. They'll pass on him, and it's like who they want to keep.
Yeah.
Now they have so many guys they probably would like to keep, but again, it's keep everybody.
So let's sort of take inventory here because we just mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of your 12 players are on 1-year deals or expiring contracts. We said one of Cox or Hargrave will be back. Probably, I still think both of these linebackers got a good shot to come back. So that would be 3 right
Depends
there.
what they want, right? What's the cost? Yep.
I can't imagine Bradberry and C.J. Gardner-Johnson are both back. I just don't know how they're going to be able to afford that, especially if they're going to wind up giving Jalen Hurts an extension. I just don't know how they're going to be able to do it.
Again, it's the first year cap number. If they get they'll get Hurts in the first year. The new money you can
right. That's true. Hurts won't have a huge. You're right because
you make sure the cap number is really small. It's about small as you can get it.
Just to explain that to people, Hurts next year is supposed to make what, $2 million or something like that. Not a lot of money. Less than that. 1 point something million. So what the Eagles will do.
1-3, yeah.
If they reach an extension with him, this is what I think the Seahawks did with Russell Wilson too. The first contract, they'll just take a lot of that guaranteed money and put it into next year's salary to make it from 1 million to, I don't know, I'm going to make up a number, 8 million. So you just took $7 million of new money and put it in that year, and you still only have him on a quote unquote $8 million deal next year, which is still great for a franchise quarterback, but that helps keep the numbers for him lower going forward because you're using some of that guaranteed money in his last year of his deal.
I think there's an escalator. I think there might be an escalator for his fourth year at Hurts, but it won't push up to more than 2.5 million. But nevertheless,
right. The bottom line is, it's cheap.
Yeah, you're gonna want to lower his salary to the minimum, and then obviously you give him a monster signing bonus, the typical option bonuses the Eagles do. They have this structure. I think it's agents say Bryce Johnston.
Right.
Is the guy who came up with their structure, if
mm-hmm.
I'm not mistaken. But and it's funny, agents always go, oh, I gotta do the Eagles structure now. They always gotta make fun of, but they like doing deals with Eagles. They're fair. But
right.
If you want to get what you want, you gotta do their structure. So it's all good. It's a give and take.
All right. Well, that was a really meaty episode of contracts there.
I'm worn out.
My brain hurts from all these numbers. And again, I'm just trying to figure out. I think defense is more difficult for them because it's players that are harder to replace. Because really on offense, it's if you don't have Miles Sanders back, I think you can still figure out how to get good running production. But on defense, if you're not bringing 3 or 4 of these guys back, that's going to be difficult. So we will see. That's a question for the offseason though. And that's our contract. Everybody's been asking, so we felt like we would go through everybody's contract situation. That will do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks to our producer, Tyler Strasser, doing a great job as always. And we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds.